Time for me to get some things done.
Don't work yourself too hard, dear.
Ah, the Crimson Cat. One of my favorite underground clubs. Ooh, I spent some wild nights here. Which reminds me, I wonder if Stefan is still working the bar these days.
Excuse me, are you Roland Devereaux?
Who's asking?
Miles Fordham, private investigator. I wanted to ask you some questions.
Sure, whatever you say.
Are you acquainted with a woman named Miriam Harris?
Sure. Acquainted. That's definitely a word you could use. But then, I'm also acquainted with about 20 other women in this borough alone.
Fascinating. Could you tell me about Miriam, please?
Sure. That woman could talk the ear off a cornstalk.
Oh? She said you didn't talk much.
That's right, I don't. She talks plenty for the both of us. Always going on about how sick she is of the phony high society types, how glad she is to be with someone real. But hey, she's loaded. And she's pretty good in bed, so it's a nice little thing we got going on.
Are you aware that Mrs. Harris's son was kidnapped last night?
What? Kidnapped?
Yes. Do you know anything about it?
No, not at all. I mean, I knew she had a son. She wouldn't shut up about him. Why would anyone take someone else's child voluntarily? Are people that desperate to have their own little brats?
I assume you're not a fan of children?
Let's just put it this way. I would rather have a hot poker shoved up my ass repeatedly than ever have to deal with a child.
Well, that's quite specific.
There is no way in hell I'm going to tie myself down and give up this great life of mine. If this lady's kid's been stolen, she'll probably leave her husband and want a replacement brat. I'm not gonna be that sucker, that's for sure. Thanks, friend. You've really opened my eyes. I think the time has come to exit stage left from Mrs. Harris's life.
You're a real piece of work, Roland.
Yeah, I know.
So, I take it you're a musician?
A musician? Am I a musician? Man, you insult me. Ask anyone who hears me tickle those ivories. They'll all tell you. I'm doing the Lord's work. I am more than just a mere musician. I have a purpose on this earth, and that is to move people, to bring joy to their souls.
And this is after you've set the piano back to manual, right?
I don't expect a layman like yourself to understand, least of all a private eye. Your job is exploiting people's misery. I don't know how you can even look at yourself.
Oh, it's fairly easy. But then I expect you've never gone more than 5 minutes without looking at yourself. I think that's quite enough for now.
It's about time.
Pardon me, are you Arthur Devens by any chance?
Yes? Who are you?
Miles Fordham, private investigator. Could I ask you a few questions?
Guess so, yeah.
Do you recognize this letter, Mr. Devens?
How'd you get that? That wasn't meant for you.
I found it at the home of Mr. Malcolm Harris. He tells me you've been sending quite a few of these to his father.
Me and everyone else what had someone killed by that devil machine. I'm not the only one, you know.
Perhaps not, but he told me you were the most persistent. What have you got against the Harris family?
Family? Don't know nothing about the family. The only one I got a problem with is Clyde Harris, the one who owns this yard. He's just like all those other rich bastards with their heads in the clouds. The man don't care about the dead. He just wants to make as much money as he can. I'm just trying to make him realize how wrong he is.
Do you know anything about the kidnapping of Charles Harris?
Charles Harris? Who's that?
Clyde Harris's grandson.
I didn't even know he had a grandson. I can't believe someone with a grandkid, a family, would want more flying death in the air. How many more people have to die before someone realizes that steam machines are evil? People will kill their own mams for a crown these days.
Mr. Harris told me you send a bag of chicken bones and dust along with your letters. Why is that?
Chicken bones? Dust? Nah, that's not right. I've only sent letters.
Are you certain of that?
Yes, as sure as I'm standing here.
Right. And I'm the queen. I get the feeling this guy will crack if we figure out what the significance of his little gift is.
Why are you out here protesting?
Because what Harris Construction is doing ain't right. I lost my wife in the Lygia crash, and I'm not the only one, neither. Hundreds of people were affected by that disaster, and now these bastards are making another airship. It's like a slap in the face to everyone who died. I just can't understand it.
What do you hope to accomplish by protesting?
Simple. We want construction of the Lenore stopped, and a full investigation into the Lygia disaster. Not only that, we want compensation for our losses. Royal Maverick took care of all the families of those on board, but the families of the ones in the park didn't get a single copper. It just isn't fair. We aim to make things right. After that, it'll just be a matter of time before people realize that there's no future in steam tech, and they'll call the whole thing off.
Ah, the innocence of the downtrodden. I wish I could be as naive as them. It would have made my life a lot easier.
You must have loved your wife very much.
Are you joking? I loved her more than there are stars in the sky. She was my whole world, Mr. Fordham, the light of my life. It's been nothing but cold and dark since she was killed. You're married, aren't you, Mr. Fordham? I see a ring on your finger.
I am, yes.
Then take my advice. Appreciate every moment you have with her. You never know when she'll be ripped out of your life, leaving you with nothing.
You know, this fella was actually pretty wise. Maybe we misjudged him.
Do you recognize this button?
Can't say I do, but it looks handmade. I wonder how long it will be before the poor soul who crafted that button gets booted into the street and replaced with some steam-belching contraption.
You seem very dedicated to your cause.
I'll take that as a compliment, Mr. Fordham.
There's quite a lot of people who are against steam tech, aren't there?
Yes, the movement is gaining ground and growing rapidly, I'm pleased to say.
I've heard stories about some more extreme members. Do you know anything about that?
You mean the Redites? Sure, I've heard of them. Even met a few. But if you think I'm telling you anything else beyond that, you're sorely mistaken.
Are you a member of the Redites, Mr. Devons?
No, I prefer more peaceful methods of making my voice heard. Now, if you don't mind, I think we should drop the subject.
Does this piece of fabric look familiar to you?
Looks like it came from some fancy jacket, the type you'd expect to see on the snobs in Leon. I could never afford clothes like that in a million years.
Good day to you, Mr. Devons.
You too, Mr. Fordham. And so we say to Harris and his cronies, no, we will not stand for this.
Come in.
Good day to you, ma'am. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Are you Mrs. Davis?
I am. Oh, bless the spirits. They've sent someone to help at last. I'm so glad someone is on the case, especially now that someone has made demands.
Demands?
Yes, the Harrises just got the note about a half an hour ago. Didn't you know?
I didn't, but thank you for the information. I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Tell me about the kidnapping of Charles Harris.
Oh, dear, may the spirits forgive me. I feel so awful. Charlie was my responsibility, and I failed.
Mrs. Davis, that is beside the point. What's important now is finding him and bringing him home. To do that, I need your full cooperation.
Oh, you're right, Mr. Fordham. I'm sorry. I just need to collect my thoughts, get the negative vibrations out of my mind. Now, what specifically would you like to know?
What time did the kidnapping occur?
I'm not entirely sure. I know I was in the nursery having a cup of tea about 8:30. I remember feeling very drowsy. I must have passed out then because the next thing I knew, I was being woken by Mrs. Harris. That was after she got home, about 10:30. To think, whoever took Charlie did it while I was in the room. Oh, may the spirits grant me peace.
Do you happen to take any sort of sleep medications or soporifics?
Oh, dear me, no. Those types of drugs cloud the mind and make it impossible to tune into the ether.
You say that as though it were a bad thing.
I beg your pardon?
Apologies, I spoke out of turn. Can you think of anyone who would have wanted to take the child?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but I am quite sensitive to the energy and vibrations that people give off. I get the impression that Mr. and Mrs. Harris aren't very happy in their marriage.
Ah, come on, anyone could have picked up on that. Anyone except you, that is.
Mr. Harris likes to stay out late and not take his wife with him. I can't remember the last time they went out together. I don't know what he gets up to, but it's possible he may have made some enemies.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to kidnap Charles?
Well, now that the Harrises have received a ransom note, it seems obvious that it was done for money. I just hope you find the poor child. He must be scared to death.
I found this piece of torn fabric in the nursery. Does it look familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry.
I found this button in the baby's crib. Do you recognize it?
Why, yes. That's one of Barney's eyes.
Barney.
Charlie's stuffed bear. It's his favorite toy, a gift from my friend Linda.
I didn't find a stuffed bear in the nursery.
Then whoever took the baby must have taken Barney as well. Oh, at least the poor thing has something to comfort him. Bless the spirits.
Who is Linda?
Mrs. Linda Walker. She's a good friend of mine. As I said, she gave me Barney as a gift for Charlie.
Can you tell me anything else about her?
Oh, she's a lovely girl, very much in tune with her spiritual nature. I greatly enjoy my conversations with her.
When was the last time you saw her?
Oh, I don't remember. No, wait. It was at the last Spectre Society meeting on the 19th. That's right.
What is the Spectre Society?
It's a club for spiritualists and amateur investigators of the paranormal. We meet twice a month to socialize and discuss our findings.
I see. Sounds fascinating.
Oh, I don't expect you to share my beliefs, Mr. Fordham.
Oh, I have a bit more experience than you'd think with regards to the spirit world.
You can say that again.
Where exactly do these meetings take place?
At a private residence in Gascon.
May I have the address?
Why, yes, it's 325 Rue Jameau. Are you going to seek spiritual guidance to find Charlie?
Perhaps. You never know what might be worth looking into. Do you have Linda Walker's address?
No, I don't. I never visited her home. I get the feeling she doesn't like having visitors or being home very much. She prefers to meet people elsewhere. I was the same way after my husband died. It was embarrassing for my friends to see me living so differently. But I feel it's not just a matter of pride for dear Linda. I think there are lots of bad memories associated with where she lives. I try to stay away from places like that. They leave a mark on the soul, you know.
How long have you worked as a nanny?
Only a few years. I never had to work when I was married. My husband had a lot of money. Unfortunately, he was in great debt. And after the spirits took him back to the ether, I wasn't left with much. So I began working as a nanny to make ends meet. But I consider taking care of children a reward in its own right.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Pretty distinguished-looking gentleman. Handsome. Good fashion sense. Wonder who he is. Her Majesty Queen Jessica. This was clearly painted a long time ago.
I have some questions.
All right.
That's a lovely portrait. Who is it of?
That is my late husband, Jonathan. He used to attend meetings of the Spectre Society with me, bless him. I tried to get him to be more in tune with the other side, but I think he was just humoring me. He was a good man. Everyone at the society cared for him very much.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I'll be going now, Mrs. Davis.
May the spirits guide your path.
Oh, Mr. Fordham. Oh, thank God you're back.
What's going on?
Our butler just brought this in. He found it stuck to the gate outside.
I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
What is your opinion of this ransom note?
It's obvious who sent it, Mr. Fordham. Why are you wasting your time here? Go arrest Mr. Devons!
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right.
Yes? May I help you?
This is the Spectre Society, right? I'm interested in joining.
Ah, yes, it is. Welcome, darling. Our membership process is a bit different to most social clubs. We require a sponsor.
Sounds simple enough.
Well, you see, we ask that sponsors be people who have passed on into the spirit world. Once you name your sponsor, I will attempt communication beyond the ether. When they answer, you will be judged and considered for membership.
What are you looking for in a sponsor?
A willingness to communicate from beyond the ether, open-mindedness, a desire for truth. In other words, all the qualities of a member of the Spectre Society. Actually, we've had former members who have passed on act as sponsors before.
I've got a sponsor.
Excellent. What is the name of your sponsor, darling?
Jonathan Davis is my sponsor.
You knew Jonathan? He was such a kind man. Yes, I can feel his presence, and it speaks positively of you.
Please, come in, Mr. I didn't catch your name.
It's Miles Fordham.
And I am Angela Maxwell, the founder of the Spectre Society. Welcome.
May I offer you some refreshments? Some water or tea, perhaps?
You're very kind, but I'm afraid I must decline right now.
Well, please let me know if you change your mind.
Won't you look at this place? It's like a candy store for psychics. There's quite a few members in this group.
Could I ask you about some things, Miss Maxwell?
Certainly, darling.
What can you tell me about the Spectre Society?
Ah, where to begin? I formed this club 2 years ago, right after I moved to New Britannia. During our meetings, we discuss our experiences with paranormal phenomena and organize investigations.
What sort of investigations?
We look into places all around the city which have been reported as haunted. New Britannia is teeming with the spirits of those killed during the French and British takeovers of the city. Not only that, but there is a prevalence of mystic religious practices here in Gascon, brought over by immigrants from the Antilles.
Fascinating.
There are plenty of books on the subject over there in the bookcase, if you're interested in learning more.
Do you know anything about the kidnapping of Charles Harris?
I'm afraid I haven't heard anything about any kidnappings, darling. If you wish, I can commune with the spirits and see if I can help locate your missing person.
That won't be necessary, Miss Maxwell, though I appreciate the offer. I spoke with Henrietta Davis, and she mentioned one of your other members, Linda Walker. Can you tell me anything about her?
Ah, Linda. Poor dear. Of all our members, she is the one I feel for the most.
Why is that?
She's had a tragic life, but I believe the Spectre Society has helped her greatly. Not only has she made a good friend in Henrietta, she's also dealt with her grief in a positive way. She has devoured my collection of books, educated herself on many subjects. I would say she's become an expert on clairvoyance and metempsychosis. It's always nice to know that the club can help those who have suffered.
Do you see her often?
Yes, she comes by about once or twice a week.
What can you tell me about Linda and Henrietta's friendship?
It's so lovely to see them together at the meetings. They're practically inseparable. It's quite sweet. They often leave messages for each other in the guest book. When Linda found out that Henrietta was taking care of an infant, she even gave her a toy bear for the child. I remember Linda lighting up with excitement when she asked about him. She really loves children. It's such a terrible shame about... But please, let's discuss something more pleasant, shall we, darling?
I'm sorry, what was it you said? Madam Psy, what?
Metempsychosis, darling. It's a philosophical term which comes from ancient Greece. It refers to the transmigration of the soul after death.
Is that anything like reincarnation?
Essentially, yes. There's a book on the subject over in the bookcase, which can tell you far more than I possibly could.
What's this tragic story about Linda you mentioned?
Oh, dear. I probably shouldn't say.
Miss Maxwell, I'm going to be frank. I'm investigating a kidnapping, and Mrs. Walker is a person of interest. I need to know as much about her as possible to help me solve this case. Do I make myself clear?
Well, if it will help, Linda was married to a man named Thomas. Together, they had a son named Alexander. Thomas revealed himself to be a terribly cruel man. When he gave himself over to the drink, he would fly into rages and beat both Linda and the boy. One day, she came home to find both her son and husband dead.
My God, what happened?
The police ruled it a murder-suicide. Poisoning, apparently. Linda has been trying to make contact with Alexander's spirit for the past year or so, but has had no luck. It really is a terrible tragedy.
Do you know Linda Walker's address?
I'm afraid not, darling. Linda has always been somewhat private, and that's not something I consider to be crucial information.
Do you know any way I can find her?
You could always come back for our next meeting. It will be the first Thursday of next month.
By then, we'll have completely lost track of Charles. There has to be another way of finding Linda.
What made you decide to start up this club?
I began communing with the spirits at a very early age. My twin sister, Rachel, died after falling into an icy pond when we were 8 years old.
I'm very sorry, Miss Maxwell.
Oh, I appreciate your sympathy, darling, but don't feel too bad. Rachel began speaking to me shortly after that. She has served as my spirit guide ever since.
Spirit guide? You mean you still speak with her?
Oh, yes. Every day. In fact, I was just speaking with her before you arrived. As I grew older, I realized there were others in the world who were also able to communicate with spirits, and those who had an interest in what lies beyond the ether. And so, once I moved to New Britannia, I decided to start up this club so we could gather and share our experiences.
Do you suppose she can hear what I'm saying? Hey, Angela, try a bit less eyeshadow, would you? You look like a purple raccoon. Nothing. Clearly a fraud. Ah, well.
I was wondering,
Yes?
when you communicate with the spirits, are you able to stop?
If I wish them to leave me, yes. I bid them farewell, and they usually depart back into the ether.
What about the more persistent ones?
You do remember I'm right here, don't you?
Well, just between you and me. Those spirits are best dealt with by having the other kind of spirits. Quiets them right down.
I prefer soporific myself.
Oh? You hear the voices of the spirits as well, Mr. Fordham. But of course, now the reason for your visit to the Spectre Society is obvious. Do you see? All our paths eventually become clear. I'm glad yours has brought you here.
Oh, wonderful. Now she started rhyming. Don't get any funny ideas about telling her about me. She may be a lunatic, but that's no reason to expose yourself as one too.
Thank you for the information. It was very enlightening.
It was my pleasure, darling.
It's nice of Miss Maxwell to let people borrow her books, even if they are all just a bunch of nonsense. And coming from me, that's really saying something. Chicken bones and dust for bad luck in business, huh? That sounds awfully familiar. There's quite a few members in this.
I'll be going now.
May the spirits guide you to that which you seek.
Hello again, Mr. Fordham.